How we doing, folks? Moose here on the Pitt Panthers Football Network, bringing you back for our Season 7, Week 4 around the NCAA recap show. And of course, your Pitt Panthers pulled off a dominating 37-10 victory over the UCLA Bruins in the Rose Bowl over in Pasadena, California. First away game of the season, and finally, honestly, the first complete game of the season. Maybe the home crowd was the issue for some of the Panthers, but ended up being an unbelievable performance. CJ Kirk with a couple of nice plays. Davion Reynolds with a great game running the football. Still, a couple of turnovers to watch out for. Fumbles were an issue. I think Kirk total ends up with 4 fumbles in this game. So when we look at Pitt Panther football, the big thing is the defense. Very, very strong. Had a very nice day. Held UCLA to only 338 yards of total offense. 5 of 14 on third down. Couple of turnovers. I think the defense was bend but not break. They did give up a decent amount of pass yardage, but bend but not break. Offensively, Davion Reynolds needs more of the football. He had a great game, getting him 24 touches. Rushing the football, I think, is fantastic. Daenerys Carter maybe could spell him a little bit more just to keep him fresh, protect him from injuries. But, when you look at this game, the Panthers ran the ball essentially 50 times. Had to run the ball. Worked very, very well. It was just a consistent way to churn the clock. Kirk, obviously, with the fumbles is something we really got to watch out for. But we made the plays when we needed to make them happen. A little bit of misdirection, a little bit of this and that. The Panthers moving the ball around effectively, I thought was very, very good. You see, Cena Rogers, couple carries. Carter had a few carries. Kirk, obviously, scrambling, made some plays happen. Your leading receiver in this game was Davion Reynolds. You can see Cena didn't really get one long 33-yard pass. And the long ball was what was really key here. The passing game as a whole was not very productive, but 53-yard pass to Welsh. He had 2 long bombs actually for touchdowns, 59-yarder to Nash Jackson. So the long passes did create some plays when they needed to happen for the Panthers. Mac McAlevey had a huge game. He was all over the field, especially in the first half, was really notable. Obviously, losing Emery is huge because he is such a great tackler for the Panthers. But I thought Wright came in and actually had a really nice game for the Panthers. Matt Wright, you can see there 4 tackles and a pass defense, a deflected defended pass. I thought he was very, very good stepping into that strong safety role as a true freshman, showing the reason that he was a 4-star prospect and why he was such a highly sought after recruit. So I thought he played really well. And I thought the pass defense as a whole, in spite of giving up 280 yards, look at the passes defended. They could have had 5-6 interceptions. I thought were very, very impressive. Whaley had a couple defenses. Vector did. Granger was unbelievable. I thought Cedric Granger probably played his best game in a Panthers uniform. As far as 2 deflections, pick, forced a fumble, he was very, very impressive. Johnny Madej had a perfect day kicking the football, which was great to see finally. He's been unbelievable for the Panthers. 3 more field goals today, so he just keeps racking up total field goals. But didn't miss any this time. I thought he had a great game and just contributed as he always does. So really, really impressive. Ayaz Durbin, he impressed me. His passing was okay. It seemed like if he was thrown to the middle of the field, he really, really struggled. Over by the sideline was where he completed a lot of passes. They loved a nice 10 to 15-yard out. I thought that was where UCLA really shined. They did not rely on Chris Sanders enough, though. The redshirt junior, only 12 carries for 38 yards. I thought if they got him involved more in the game, create a little bit more balance in their offense, then we would add a little bit more to worry about. But as it was, they got kind of behind the 8 ball early in the second half. We took that 24-10 lead and then kind of never looked back, and they didn't really have the opportunity to get the rushing game going again and had to pass the football. So overall, great game for the Panthers. UCLA with some talented players, though. We'll try to connect this. I don't know if I've done too much of an update, but I do have a Madden, I want to say it's Madden 22 or something, 21 season going along, or 22, I want to say, where we do have one season completed with players in the NFL. We got Pickett on the Steelers and all those guys from our Dynasty in there. There's a couple guys on this UCLA team that are going to be big pro prospects. Babineau was unbelievable. Toaloa was incredible. He was all over the field, knocked the ball away, sacks, getting pressure on everybody. He was a fantastic player. Obviously, we know how good Babineau is. Some really, really nice players on this UCLA team. Their entire defense could probably make the NFL the way they played. Ryan Kiana didn't even really, and Bryson Russ, a couple of their defensive ends, didn't even make impacts, to be honest. And yet, they're both fantastic, unbelievable players. Marcus Johnson, 92 overall kicker. I mean, so that just tells you the quality of talent that UCLA has. I think I still expect a strong season from them overall, in spite of their loss to the Panthers today in pretty disappointing fashion. But around the ACC, Miami 48-3. Duke, big upset over Boston College, 35-31. You'd argue it's an upset, but Duke honestly with a lot of talent, really, really good, and a team that's kind of hit or miss as far as that goes. Virginia, our opponent for next week, 2-1 victory, or should say 2-1 now with a victory over the Citadel, we'll say. Really much closer game than they would have liked. Wake pulls the upset on number 15, North Carolina. North Carolina was actually leading this game at one point, I believe 21-10, and then Wake completely shuts them out in the second half, dominates the game, and ends up pulling out the victory there. Florida State beats Georgia Tech. Clemson with a really, really disappointing performance here, losing to Oklahoma State, who just uses Antoine Byrne-Horton and a number of players to just run it down Clemson's throat. 211 rushing yards for the Cowboys, and just an unbelievable performance. Will Alford struggled in this game with a couple of picks. And Thomas, really nice performance for Oklahoma State. And then Byrne-Horton, 134 yards on 20 carries. We know what kind of talent he has. Barbour, 146 yards on 6 catches as well. Big, big win for Oklahoma State. Virginia Tech outlast Louisville. 2 late touchdowns from Eddie Henderson, 2-yard run, 1-yard run, including the winning score with just a minute to play, allows the Hokies to come away with a 4-point victory over Louisville there. Unbelievable game in that regard. Some other big games around the country. You can see Cal knocked off Arizona State 35-28. Nebraska 26-17 over Wisconsin. Texas blows out SMU. Michigan, Washington, Penn State, all with very easy, convincing wins. And then Notre Dame dominates Michigan State. We've talked about some of those ACC games already. Arkansas 24-13 over Georgia, who now has 2 losses. And I don't know what it is with this Georgia team. Carter Ford at quarterback is an unbelievable player. They have great talent at tailback as well, wide receiver, and yet somehow they just can't seem to put it together. Tennessee knocks off Florida. USC outlasts Oregon. Cincinnati 31-10 over Miami of Ohio. LSU, your game of the week, knocks off Auburn 38-21. Kelakolio at quarterback, Jacoby Sutton at receiver. I mean, they're loaded with talent, and of course they come away with the win there. Maryland 20-6 over West Virginia, who after that drubbing by your Panthers to start the season, they are just really, really on the downspin at 1-3. Donation Lanu, former top 5 recruit, 5-star from Louisiana, ended up signing at Houston. 255 yards, 3 touchdowns, as well as 2 receiving touchdowns with 68 yards. An over 300-yard, 5-touchdown performance for the former 5-star recruit. Unbelievable game for him. Keith Hughes, who will be Virginia's quarterback against the Panthers this coming week, 381 yards and 5 TDs in their narrow victory, while Josh Richard III forced 2 fumbles and recovered one of them for BC in the losing effort versus Duke to win ACC Defensive Player of the Week. Take a look at the Heisman race. D.D. Harris from Ohio State is in there with a shout. Some of these guys will move around. Of course, you got Chase Johnson, the junior running back, 113 yards, 4 TDs for Texas A&M. Cody Carter with a nice performance in Notre Dame's win over Michigan State. Marquez Gordon, Penn State quarterback, with over 300 yards of total offense and 6 TDs. And then, of course, Antoine Byrne-Horton, like we already mentioned, another former 5-star recruit with that big Oklahoma State win over Clemson, gets himself into the Heisman race. So few halfbacks, few quarterbacks. We'll see how that plays out as the season goes on. Obviously, it's early, and so we should see a lot of movement in the Heisman race as things start picking up. Top 10, top 25, as you can see. Again, this is going to move around a little bit because of the fact that the ratings came in not exactly the same as what we saw at the end of last season, just because of the move from NCAA 14 to NCAA college football revamped. And so because of that, we had to essentially start the Dynasty over. So, of course, the ratings are going to be a little bit off from last year's results in the Dynasty, but all the teams are still similar in terms of their talent level and things. So we would expect things over the course of the season to shake out as we would expect. And of course, we still have the college football playoff, so we don't have to worry about rankings unduly messing up someone's ability to get into the college football playoff, because we, the voters, will have control over that. The committee, I should say, to determine who gets into that. But we can see some of the teams that moved around. Georgia, with their second loss of the season, and North Carolina, with their loss, already dropped out of the rankings. Your Pitt Panthers not receiving votes as it stands just yet, despite a 4-0 start to the campaign, and finally a very convincing win over a good UCLA squad. So we look around the ACC at the games coming up this week. ACC matchup: Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Clemson taking on Wake Forest, Florida State taking on Boston College, and Syracuse taking on Miami. So some big conference showdowns taking place already. Your Panthers, of course, 1-0 in conference play with their victory earlier in the season over Florida State. They go to Virginia, to Charlottesville, to take on the Cavaliers in their second ACC game of the season. Some of the games of the week: Texas A&M taking on Arkansas. That's where College Game Day is going to be this week. You got Florida at Kentucky. Should be a good showdown between, some struggling schools, but still good football programs. Oklahoma taking on Notre Dame. That's where I would send College Game Day. You got a top 10 matchup there between two unbelievable programs. Taylor Savage, of course, the quarterback for Oklahoma, Heisman top 5 finalist last year, as well as national champion, as the Sooners did win the playoff last year. So that's a big game. That's going to be one that's certainly one to watch. South Carolina taking on Auburn. Antonio Gaither, of course, the young phenom quarterback for the Tigers. 2-2 to start this season, so a little bit of a struggle, but still very solid program there. LSU at Tennessee is going to be another great one to watch. Oklahoma State at West Virginia. West Virginia looking to get off the schneid, but looking at LSU and Tennessee. Tennessee, who we already played this season, we won in a bit of a defensive battle. Their offense still very good. Their defense is unbelievable, but they're going to take on one of the top offenses in the country, number 7 scoring through the first 4 weeks of the season in the LSU Tigers, and Kauno Calacolio, their incredible starting quarterback. Nebraska, number 22 in the country, 4-0 start for the Huskers, so they're looking to continue that against Indiana in a Big Ten showdown there in Lincoln. That should be a great matchup between those two schools. Corso liking Nebraska in his productions on College Game Day. Maryland, Michigan State. Nice matchup there. Maryland off to a really strong start, 3-0 as it stands right now. Ohio State, Wisconsin. Wisconsin, 2 losses to start the season, so their overall ranking is just a B-. So it'd be interesting to see how the season progresses for them, as it doesn't look very strong for a team that's normally very, very good. Texas taking on Baylor. Both teams 3-0. In Waco, should be a great matchup. Some big recruits looking to be in attendance as well. It says 13 visiting prospects are attending that game, so that should be ginormous for Baylor and their recruiting. They could be a team that's on the rise if they can win that game. Ole Miss taking on Bama, who's 3-0, of course, number 1 in the country again. Famously defeated your Pitt Panthers a couple of years ago in the college football playoff championship game, due to the Kenny Pickett concussion injury that knocked him out of the game when the Panthers looked to be on the verge of their first national championship since 1976. So great slate in the top 25. And then, of course, we take a look at your Pittsburgh Panthers, who are looking to try and break into the top 25 with a victory or a couple more victories here. Pitt, interestingly, number 13 in total offense this season, number 50 in points per game. So 464 yards a game, but only 29.5 points per game. It's a bit disappointing, and they're looking to get off the schneid by taking on a team that looks ripe for the picking. -6 turnover differential and 424 yards against the game, 110th in the country. They give up rushing yards. They give up defensive yards. Virginia's had passing yards. Virginia's had a real struggle to start the season on the defensive side of the football. Now, they've clawed out some victories. They beat BYU in overtime, beat the Citadel, but did lose to Oregon 41-21. So they've given up over 24, 31, and 35 points. I think that's a team that the Panthers should hopefully score against and move the football against. Kent Hughes, good player. Jamar Jefferson, actually their number 2 running back, but they got a nice balance with him and Kevin Harmon. Derek Stuckey, receiver. It's a solid player, but they have some really talented guys as we take a look at their roster here. It is a team that, in spite of the, rather negative start to the season they've had, I think they do have a lot of talent, a lot of high 80s rated players to watch out for here, especially at some of the skill positions that can really take advantage of. Defensively, I think, is where we can really beat them. But Keith Hughes, 85 overall. Good speed. He's mobile, so he's a guy you got to watch out for overall. You can see the depth they have at quarterback moving forward since we're into the new file. But there's Hughes' stats on the season, and you can see how he is. Decent power, decent accuracy. Who knows how the game's going to go? I mean, it's one of those things that the CPU quarterbacks are always crazy to have to deal with, and especially with Kevin Harmon, 98 speed, 88 overall. This is a running back that they should be leaning on. He played one game this season, 65 yards, and then you can see he was injured and has not played since. He will be back and playing in this game. Jamar Jefferson picked it up in his stead and has played well, but Kevin Harmon is by far the better offensive talent for Virginia. There's no doubt about that. At receiver, Derek Stuckey leading the way, but they do have Curtis Ross, the junior, who likely will be back next year, who could be even better. Calhoun is solid. Brian Hampton, Dontrell Davis, couple of young stars that could be very solid moving forward. Dontrell Davis, 6'7", with 92 speed. He's one to watch, certainly for the future. So they have a little bit of depth as far as that's concerned. Ross is the guy to watch. Joel McCarty at tight end, sophomore, 80 overall already. Good receiving tight end, big size on him. Decent player to watch out for, but not much depth beyond that. On the offensive line, it's much like you'll expect, mid-80s around every roster, right? At Andrew Hines, of course, at center. 87 overall, Alan Jenkins Sr. at right guard, and then at right tackle, 86 senior, Aiden Knapp, though. With an injury designation, we may see Reese Williamson, who 72 overall is one to take advantage of, especially with Jalen Hills having a good start to the season over at the left end position for us. Defensively, Ryan Underwood's a senior, Jared Franklin Sr., another senior, so 80s overall, but nothing too special to watch out for as far as that's concerned. Defensive tackle, they got Peter Cole and Bronte Stewart, true freshman, so 75 overall. He'll be one that'll be very impressive by the time he becomes a junior or senior, but not great. Now, linebackers where they look very good. Ryan Burnett at left outside linebacker, 86 overall, already a good solid junior. They have Riley Foreman, the starting senior middle linebacker, who's an impact player, but take a look at their backup middle linebacker, Jameel Mack. 88 overall as a sophomore. He's an unbelievable player at middle linebacker for them. Surely going to play some significant time, and next year he should be even better. Jerome Jenkins is their defensive captain, 91 overall with 82 speed. Unbelievable talent out of Washington, D.C. with 6'7" length as well. Huge player who can be very, very good. They have two good corners. Davis the second, 93 speed, 87 overall. But beyond that, not a ton of depth at the corner position. So that could be an area where the Panthers may look to pass the ball because there's not a great defensive front for Virginia and not a great secondary. So they may hopefully have some time for C.J. Kirk to overlook the secondary and make some big plays happen. Ross Johnson, decent. Corey Jackson, solid at strong safety. But the corners are nothing to write home about. You'd expect, hopefully, Sino, Rogers, KJ Wealth, Keith Onyango with their speed and their talent to hopefully have a field day against this Virginia roster and defense specifically. So this could be a shootout. The way the Pitt defense has played, obviously they had a good game against UCLA, but more bend but not broke. Didn't exactly keep them from tons of yardage. And so we could see a shootout. It's definitely tough to say. Let us know in the comments how you think the Panthers are going to fare in this contest. What you think the final score will be, especially away from home in the Pitt Panthers' both second away game and second ACC game of the season. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. We greatly appreciate it. Hail to Pitt. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.